went all in.
Yeah.
And when I mean all in, like sold the house, maxed out the credit cards, all in.
I love it. Yeah.
And, there's a sense of like, when your back's against the wall, you have to make it work. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have another option.
No Free Lunch is presented by T. Rowe Price. The information provided on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified financial and or legal professionals before making any legal or financial decisions or investments. I'm Ndamukong Suh, and welcome to No Free Lunch, where we talk to experts and athletes about how the most successful people in sports manage their money and grow their wealth. Historically, the use of cannabis across sports has been taboo, but now recreational use is legal in almost half the country. As a result, major leagues like the NBA have recently stopped testing players for cannabis use. That's allowed athletes to be way more open about their own cannabis use for recreational, pain management, and focus. And many athletes have started their own cannabis brands. Mike Tyson, Megan Rapinoe, Sue Bird, Al Harrington, and even Ricky Williams, who got a lot of heat for his cannabis use while he was still playing. Also, just in June, he successfully lobbied against a ban on THC products in his home state of Texas. So today, I'm talking to my friend Chris Joseph, co-founder of Wyld. We'll discuss how they've built the leading cannabis edible brand in America and look at how athletes and other entrepreneurs can thrive in the space. Let's talk about it right here on No Free Lunch. Today's guest, obviously a Portland great. There's so many amazing people that come out of Portland, but he is a Portland guy like me, founded two amazing companies. One I'm really excited to get into, and we've talked about it and looked at some different deals together in the spirits space, where he's the founder of Cascade Spirits, a craft liquor brand that he started by distilling his own liquor, which is very, very, very impressive. But exciting one I'm also looking to talk to is about Wyld. Wyld brand is amazing and obviously the biggest cannabis seller when it comes to edibles in the US. So welcome to the show, my good friend, Chris Joseph.
Thank you.
You started out with Cascade and really built it from a standpoint of saying, let's go as wide as possible. Then you brought that back from your thesis and said, hey, we really want to go deep. What are some of the brands and focuses, especially even being in the Pacific Northwest and this demographic, of why you decided to make that shift and that pivot to go down deep? What were some of the reasons and why you made those decisions?
Yeah, part of it was a lot of the brands that we've made on the spirit side were reflections of the Northwest, in our opinion.
Yeah.
So Wyld Roots was really an inspiration of the Northwest. Some of the fruit that we use is just grown here in our backyard, Marionberry being our favorite. And when you try to scale Marionberry, for example, Wyld Roots Marionberry vodka over to the East Coast, they don't really think of that as a flavor. They don't know what that is.
So Chris, just to make it clear, because not everybody has been fortunate enough to be in the great state of Oregon, can you explain to them what Marionberry is?
Marionberry, to look at it from my perspective, it's a really big, juicy blackberry. And really it is. It's a cross between two different blackberries that was cultivated at Oregon State. But to me, it's just a really big, juicy blackberry.
I mean, all the best stuff comes out of Oregon, whether it's shoes, whether it's cannabis, especially edibles with Wyld. Like, what more do you want from us? Now we got the best berries in the world.
What we found is we were spending extra money on education and it still wasn't clicking the way it needed to.
Yeah.
And where if we spend that same dollar here, we get much more of a return.
Yeah.
And, the resources it needs to go national, it was bringing in revenue, but it wasn't reflecting profit.
Yeah.
And, revenue is only as great as the profit it brings.
Yeah.
And so that was a quick lesson that I learned. And when we turned and said, hey, let's just focus on these primary markets, we were growing faster, we're making more profit, and our brands are gaining more traction too.
And we were just talking about it earlier on, talking about companies having this massive amount of revenue, but not being profitable, but then being able to sell these big conglomerates. You're obviously looking at it and very strategic and smart when you're saying, hey, we want to have this revenue and it's great, but I'd rather scale back and go deeper to be able to have profits, which that actually turns back to my investors, ourselves as an organization, being able to help our company continue to grow. And then we can start getting wider because we've gone deep. We've hit this goal. So as you're looking at that, were some of those lessons that you learned from those experiences translated into other spaces that you've come from and understood?
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at what we tried to do on the spirits, it's the roadmap that I saw. And I was hoping that would lead to those big exits and you run off in the sunset. And that can still happen, but really right now people are focusing more on the profit. You need to be a smart business and it allows you to control your own destiny. You're not waiting for an exit in that sense. You're not relying on it. Where we've taken that same strategy and moved it over to cannabis. Okay. And so we were not first to market in a lot of these markets. Yeah. We're just entering the Northeast now. Okay. And that was really going into a market, building up pull through and velocity and saturation, then going to the next market. Yeah. And so, we took a lot of what we learned on spirits and took those pieces and moved it into cannabis. Okay.
And I'm glad you brought up cannabis and Wyld, and it's a great transition to be able to talk more about that. Just explain to the audience what exactly Wyld is in its core from the very beginning and where it is right now and what you want it to be in the future.
Yeah, Wyld is a cannabis brand that was founded in Oregon, where we're from.
Great state. Yeah. Great state.
And we started in edibles, which is a single brand of Wyld with a few SKUs. And we've branched it out to have several and many, many different SKUs, and fortunate to have I think it's 12 of the top 13 SKUs sold in the country now. But we are in every rec state now. We cross the country. We're also in Canada. We are in beverage now in the cannabis space with CBD and also Delta-9 THC. Yeah. So we have Wyld, and then we have Good Tide. Good Tide is a brand that we did launch into select markets. Now we're going nationwide with Good Tide. Okay. We do have other brands that we're working on, some that are hitting in the lower price point categories, some that are actually going into different diverse backgrounds that we're trying to look at. Much like the beer world went into Corona and other beers, we see the same opportunity for cannabis to diversify a little bit. And we're looking to see what's outside of edibles. And we've looked at distribution. We've looked at completely different categories. It's not just your edible space. So, long-term vision, we start off with just a small edible dream of that $1 million. And big picture, we want to be the InBev of cannabis. Okay. We want to own brands. We want to create brands. We want to invest into them, and we want to help manufacture and distribute them on a national and global level. So not just the United States. We're looking at a global footprint.
Yeah, and you're already in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, which is a much more friendlier country, to say the least, as of being fully open when it comes to cannabis.
Correct, yes. And that is a challenging and competitive market too. Yeah. And it's ran by the board up there, and which helps from a regulation perspective and also from like a competitive landscape too. But every state that we operate in is almost like operating a different country. Yeah. So to us, I feel like we had a little bit of a competitive advantage with being in so many states when we entered into Canada, but we're a leading brand there, and just like we are in the States. Okay.
Did you guys, when you're looking to expand in Canada, do you leverage some of the resources? I remember early on in the days of cannabis, especially in Canada, they had the ability to use public dollars, if I'm not mistaken. And have you guys been able to do that as a company, or have you shied away from that? What's kind of been your thesis around that?
We haven't needed to. Okay. Yep. And, people looked at SPACs or other public options and money and resources to help fund their business and grow their business. But we really stayed disciplined through and through, and we still do. And that allows us to move forward on opportunities like launching into Canada. Yep. And so we have the resources that we've saved as a company to be able to grow and expand.
Obviously, Oregon, the Pacific Northwest, California, Denver were seen as like the gold rush of that era and whatnot. Was that a reason why you wanted to get in this space, or what were the specific reasons why you said, hey, I want to move in this space, and especially from an edibles perspective?
We knew we wanted to get into cannabis, really because it was an opportunity to be a part of an industry that was being legalized for the first time. Mm-hmm. And that thought alone was motivating and attractive to me because you get to be the trailblazer.
Yeah.
You get to help form what works and what doesn't work. That to me excited me. I actually didn't consume cannabis until we started Wyld.
Yeah.
So it wasn't anything that I was necessarily into. I was more into paving the way. Okay. And we were able to do that, and we still are able to help influence what the industry looks like.
In paving the way, what were some of the ways that you paved the way? Because I know selfishly, because I've been around you and obviously had many great conversations about Wyld and looking at continue to work on some stuff together. But like, what are some of the things of you guys being trendsetters that have been adopted by other brands that are trying to compete with you?
Yeah, I think that can go into the product itself. Mm-hmm. It can go into more regulations. Yeah. And how do you keep consumers safe? And how you bring the product with education and how you market it and how you position it. Yeah. So a good example of that is our CBN products, geared for sleep. Mm-hmm. And right now you can't really stamp what a product can do from a health benefit side, but you can really show that through your marketing. Yeah. And so some of our word choices or colors or fonts or how we position the product, we're able to communicate that. And I think that's been one thing that we've been able to be trendsetters on, is really how do you create a product that people can benefit from? Yeah. Right. And when we first started, the products weren't consistent. Yeah. And the packaging wasn't welcoming. Okay. And what you were buying, consumers were confused of. So when I looked at it, not being a cannabis consumer, mm-hmm. I didn't know what I was buying when I went to a dispensary before we launched. Yeah. Right. So I knew when we launched Wyld, I wanted it to be reliable, consistent, have education on it, be inviting, where you don't have to be ashamed of buying this drug.
Not seen as taboo.
Correct. Yeah. And so that's where you see our brand show up in a good way. People can rely on us and trust us. And I think that's the one thing that's really set us apart.
No, that's awesome. And would you say that's from a perspective of being approachable for the everyday person? But you mentioned sleep. Do you see a focus of Wyld also trying to help the sports industry and being able to help athletes get sleep after high performing games? And these different particular pieces are on high levels of caffeine. Like myself, I took 15 milligrams of caffeine throughout the games and whatnot. So finding ways for me, I use magnesium to calm down, because it was illegal when I was playing to be able to use cannabis or any of these different particular pieces that weren't approved by the league. So do you see that as something that, even till this day, it's less of a taboo in sports, but it's now more looking to be acceptable with CBD creams and different things of that nature, that now potentially cannabis is an opportunity to help? And do you see Wyld being a leader in that space?
I do. And that's definitely something that we want to lean on, especially in the future as things open up, mm-hmm. and as it becomes more acceptable in the sporting world. And I think there's a ton of benefits, whether it's getting the right sleep, or helping with recovery or aches or pains, even focus, right? There's different cannabinoids, and you can utilize the cannabis in different ways to find the right solution for you. Mm-hmm. Everyone's body's different, so cannabis will impact it differently, but you can find the right mix that works for you. So focusing on athletics and sports for us is very important, mm-hmm. and very excited. We're very excited to do that in the future too.
Let's go back from the very beginning. In your visioning, we talked a little bit about you had learnings from the spirits industry that you translated that into Wyld and the cannabis industry. But how was Wyld built from the very beginning, from a funding perspective, and how did that raise go? How were you involved in all those steps as a co-founder?
Yeah, from Wyld, looking back at it, we started in 2015, 16, and we didn't really know where we were going to land in cannabis. We didn't know if we were going to be a dispensary. We didn't know if we were going to be a grow op. Yeah. We really looked at what the regulations were, mm-hmm. and try to think long term. Okay. Right. So we know farming was hard. It's difficult. It is for anybody. But when you create an ag state and an ag category that can't export, mm-hmm. that's a problem. Yeah. Right. I don't know how that could work. So, and if you allow unlimited grow license, you'll have excess supply, which will draw down the price. Mm-hmm. Right. So, and there'll be a surplus of it on the market. So we knew farming would be challenging, and From a dispensary game, retail is challenging as well. So we tried to look at our core competencies, and looking at that, we knew we could land on a packaged good.
Okay.
We had that experience from liquor. We wanted to focus on that for cannabis as well. From a funding side, really we did friends and myself. So we have a very close knit of funding. We've been fortunate enough to not have to add more to the cap table. And part of that goes back to what we learned from the spirit side.
Yeah.
If you grow deep and you don't go too wide too fast, you can control your own cash flow and you can enter the new spaces as you need it. So from a funding perspective, that actually went really well for us because we didn't have to raise too much.
Yeah.
Now growth capital was different.
Okay.
With success, even for us, we were able to grow within our means, but to take on the East Coast, we needed partners, we needed help.
Yeah.
And we were able to do friends and family. And we were very fortunate enough to have a lot of supporters that helped us during that round. And with that, we had continued success and we were able to give good returns for that, but we kept the cap table to ourselves. So a lot of it was looking in the future and knowing we would need CapEx investments too.
Yeah. Breaking it down for everybody, what was that initial raise? If I remember correctly, 2015, $150,000 from a seed perspective. It was all friends and family, no VC money?
No VC money. Yeah. It was 150 grand, and we may have done 50 to 100 grand of personal loans. And that was it.
No, that's awesome. And so the cap table right now, the structure is just friends and family and the co-founders. You spent those dollars and that seed money on R&D, I'm assuming research and development, employees, comp plans. Are there chemists within the group? Because it obviously sounds very keen that you guys are dialed into the details of the cannabinoids and all these different things that are going on within the product.
Yeah, the money that we originally raised was for branding and packaging and raw materials. Yeah. And we needed some equipment to produce it. Yeah. And, when you look at the original Wyld days, we had 50, 60 people in a tiny square foot, 1 bathroom kitchen. And we put another floor on top of it. Then we bust through walls. And now we have a little compound out in Clackamas. But, the money went towards, some staffing. We do have some food scientists on staff that are able to make our products taste great, be reliable, always be ahead of industry standards in that sense. But we really were lean. There's cannabis companies and a lot of businesses in general. Yeah. They might buy the nicest thing out there, they're top of line. That wasn't Wyld's way. We bought what we needed and we were very frugal with our money. We never got over our skis and we lived within our means.
Man, I love that you said you live within your means. A lot of athletes don't understand what that means. Live within your means. Understand, live below what you actually need at the end of the day. And I love that. So we talked about the brand and you guys have multiple SKUs of Wyld. One you mentioned, obviously from a sleep perspective, one from a pain management perspective that obviously helped you in your trials and tribulations to get back where you were post-COVID and whatnot. What are some of the other specific line items, products that you guys have to just share with our audience of what's available from Wyld?
Yeah, we have a assortment of different flavors and different varieties. And I encourage everyone to look us up online or social media to look at some of those other products. But, when we first started, we had our Marionberry gummy, we had raspberry gummy, pomegranate, peach. We have an elderberry, we have a boysenberry. We have a newly launched kiwi. So we do have an assortment of different fruit. And those range anywhere from indica to sativa to hybrids to focusing on different varieties like CBN, which will help you with your sleep. We have CBG, which I found help with on my recovery. We have THCV, which is newer. And some people say it's like the dieting drug. It's an appetite suppressant, if you will. But again, those different varieties.
That's an interesting one, especially in cannabis from a perspective of, I've always known people, whoever drinks or smokes or takes an edible, all they want to do is go and eat. So let's talk about that one a little bit more.
Yeah. And again, these, the cannabis and THC, it impacts people differently.
Yeah, for sure.
So the THCV one though has a reputation for being appetite suppressant. But for me, Typically THC hits me just like you described. I'll finish a whole pizza if it's in front of me. But no, one of my favorites to actually just relax and enjoy is actually our huckleberry. Okay. And people consider that one more of they call it the chuckleberry. Okay. It just lets you have fun and laugh and enjoy the moment too. So if I'm just hanging out on a weekend, and that's the one that I would choose.
So you've heard it here live from Chris. One, you got to have Marionberry. That's the home state. Huckleberry, if you want to laugh your butt off. And then obviously the anti-eating one, which will be very interesting. Yep. You
guys will have to take a look for that one as it launches. And then if it comes to sleep, like my go-to is either our elderberry or our boysenberry. Okay. Those are good for sleep.
Elderberry or boysenberry. I like it. When you're opening up new products, what is the process to be able to say, hey, this meets our standards, which is a very high standard, and now we will allow it out to the public?
It can take countless tries to get a flavor to where we want it to be and for the effect to be what we want it to be. Mm-hmm. But really it starts from a foundational area of what's trending or what's missing in the market. Mm-hmm. And the sleep gummy for us, our CBN focus with our elderberry is a good example of that. That was something that we saw as an emerging category and an opportunity. Yeah. And so we worked really hard to find the right flavor. Mm-hmm. We thought that was elderberry to start. Then we expanded that to a boysenberry option too. Mm-hmm. But finding that right flavor to mix with the cannabis product. Yeah. And that starts with us really researching it. Then it gets into R&D and development. So we have a team of great food scientists and beverage scientists to help formulate the product. Yeah. And that can go from 50 to 100 plus different tries of getting that product. And it's really a round table. Okay. We're fortunate to have like a lot of great people here locally in Oregon that we can just test it with, internally staffed. Yeah. And we try that and get feedback, and we really try to perfect it from there. And then it goes into, at the same time, once we know we have a flavor that's going to work, is how do you make sure the package is dialed and can communicate what we need it to communicate? So the marketing team does a great job working with that, and all of our packaging, the fruit illustrations you see, they're actually hand done. Yeah. And so we work with an artist that helps create that to be able to use that on the package itself. Okay. Then it goes into a whole trade planning and launch strategy from our trade team. Yeah. And how do you really launch into a state and be successful? And then you have our compliance team that also has to register the product with the state and make sure our compliance boxes are all checked too. You have the supply chain team that needs to work on sourcing correctly, because you can't just buy a product and it shows up tomorrow. Yeah. And then you want to make sure you don't lock up too much cash flow with buying too much. Mm-hmm. So it really goes into them working with the FP&A team for financial planning and also forecasting. And that goes into the sales team needing to understand like what the stores are needing. So really it is a full on team approach where it touches every aspect of the business when we go to launch a product, going in from idea phase all the way to execution to launch phase.
Wow. So would you say on average that's anywhere from 3 months upwards of 16, 15, 20 months, 24 months?
When we first started and it was only a handful of states, 3 months was probably something that could be done. Yeah. But now you're looking at, we were sprinting 6 months. Okay. Give me 9 to 12 months and I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. You want to have it spot on. Okay. Right. We talked about products and obviously growing them and finding these different avenues for your clientele and the demographics of where they're working. So like Marionberry obviously is very key here to Oregon, and it's well known here. You don't have to educate people on it. As you're growing, especially going to the Northeast now and expanding Wyld there, how do you find your customers and make sure that you're serving them? Because you may not be selling the same thing, even though it's a Wyld product, as you're in here in Oregon or on the West Coast as in the East Coast. So how do you look at identifying what's best for your customers in the Northeast or the Midwest or the Pacific Northwest for new products?
For us, it starts with the bud tenders. Okay. And the bud tenders, they know what products are moving.
Bud tenders, not bartenders. Bud tenders.
Yes. And, we want to be great partners with them. Our brand has a national reputation now, so we do have a competitive advantage with that. Yeah. But we really want to communicate and work with them on what's working in their market. Yeah. Is it sativa? Is it indica? Mm-hmm. Do they see more CBN pulling? And so really it starts with making sure that we're able to provide them with the right product and that they want. And then how can we educate them?
Yeah.
And so we focus a lot of energy and time and resources on making sure that they're properly educated on our brand, the product, and we want their feedback on how we can do better. And that is the main way we're able to do that. Otherwise, like I said, we don't overspend as a company. We've always been frugal with our money and very smart and intentional with our spends. So when you look at what alcohol has done for the most part, you'll see them spend a lot of money on marketing and advertising. When you look at Wyld, we don't do that. Where we spend our money is very intentional and very thoughtful. So we try to show up where our customers will be. So when we first launched, you would find us at farmers markets. Yeah. And if we could hit the average consumer and get them to adapt and buy the product, that was a huge competitive advantage. So again, started with bud tender, but how do you connect with them on a local basis? We have to show up where they're at. Yeah. And that really depends state by state, and our local teams, because we do have boots on the ground. Yeah. They help tell us where that's at.
No, that's amazing. It's all about grassroots, because I think it's when you look at the spirits brand and outside of yourself and some of the things that you guys have focused on and learning and pivoting from that perspective, not a lot of companies, especially when they're as big as you guys are about the grassroots and staying there. They're all about, hey, I'm going to go find this shining star. Who's the next hottest thing? Let me make them be the star of my products, and then everybody else should follow, versus saying, hey, let's stay with our roots, and then we'll be able to grow from there.
That's right.
You have an MVP within your business. What's the definition of MVP in your business?
For me, as far as looking at that, it's overall our entire culture, our team. Yeah. Like it's all of us together. And it's not one individual or one individual product that makes or breaks Wyld. It's really the whole people coming together. Yeah. And we're able to rally behind that mission. And to me, it's always looked at as, if Wyld can be looked at as more than edibles, we've made it. Yeah. Because there's a lot of stuff that we do to support the communities that makes everything worth it to us. When we first started Wyld, it was funny. It's just a couple of us, and we said, we're going to make $1 million worth of edibles. We're going to sell $1 million. Yeah. And that was a kid with a dream. But really, to make that and take that even further, I think the kid with the dream was really, how do you make an impact? Yeah. And I think that's what brands need to do today. Is you can't just be a brand selling on a shelf. You have to have a meaning. You have to have a purpose. Yeah. And for us, our purpose is, we're working within a environment that is incarcerating people, or did, and still does. For sure. Right? So we have a failed war on drugs. And how do we better that? Yeah. So part of our commitment is trying to improve that. We also have sustainability at the front as well. But how can we take our resources? I said it before, revenue is only as great as the profit it brings. Yeah. But that profit is really only as meaningful as the impact it makes. So how do you make the biggest impact with that money? And so that drives us.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're taking your profits and reinvesting them in the community in multiple different ways, whether it's from an incarceration perspective, whether it's from a farming, supporting local businesses that support you guys from a perspective of fruits and things of that nature. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we take it to grow our business. Because the bigger we're able to be, the more we can support. Yeah. We invest into more personnel. We make sure our comp is competitive, our benefits are competitive, that we have good culture, we have good resources. But some of it is, the war on drugs. And so I think to date we've helped expunge over 1,300. Wow. And supported that for people. And that means a lot to us, right? Because having, marijuana felonies and crimes on your record, we live in a world where you're making money on it. That shouldn't be a thing anymore, but that prevents people from being able to get loans for mortgages, to get jobs. And it creates a whole level of inequity. Yeah. And we're trying to fight against that. And so that means a lot to us. Also, we're a cap table and we're very aware of it, of white people, white males. Yeah. And there's inequity within our industry. There's inequity everywhere, and we need to do better. And so we're in a position where we can help provide resources to people that are not in the same situation. Yeah. And so we've helped fund some businesses, help giving low interest rates to businesses. We've partnered with New Project that does the same, and they do a lot of great work. So we're able to get behind them, but also some on the social on the sustainability side of things, we help plant trees. Our packaging, we're committed to making sure they are environmental friendly. Yeah. And one of our newer brands, Good Tide, it's the packaging is actually all paper.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So home compostable packaging is really what we're striving for.
I want to talk a little bit more about the community side of things and really the perception, as you mentioned, incarceration and how it's seen as such a negative thing of cannabis. What are you guys doing from an education perspective, not only from supporting people from an athletic perspective, but also just everyday communication about educating people about cannabis and the positive things that come from it and that can either heal them or help them and support them in their daily livings?
That part's been a little bit difficult just because of the regulations. And trying to be behind that. There's a lot of things we just can't say right now. And I'm hoping that can open up more. But, right now it's really just letting people sample and try the product.
Yeah.
And so we try to show up to as many events as possible, but in as many ways as possible too, to let people try our products.
Yeah.
I think also just the assortment of products we have allow people to do that too. So they can try different experiences with Wyld. But otherwise we really try to focus on the safety of the product, right? Okay. Yeah. Making sure that they're not consuming more than they really need to. Yeah. And to us, we are really pushing on our marketing as well, where we want people to start wherever they need to start. So we say, start here, go anywhere.
Yeah.
And take baby steps, try the product and find the best use for yourselves. But like I said before, like the sporting side of it, I played sports, but clearly not professional. But even knowing like some of the aches and pains and recovery, I can see where cannabis can help. And a lot of people don't know this too. I got really sick during like when COVID first came out. I had a bad reaction and to COVID, and I actually had to relearn how to walk.
Wow.
And so I was in a wheelchair for a while and a walker and a cane, and my muscles just weren't working. And the one thing I started doing was microdosing our pear gummy.
Okay.
And so I cut it up and take a little bit every 2 hours. And, the doctors didn't know if it would take me a year, 2 years, 3 years, if I could learn how to walk again or ever.
Yeah.
They couldn't really figure out what was wrong. But what I did know is the cannabis product that I was taking, our pear gummy, it helped me recover a lot faster than they expected. And I was able to sleep at night without the pain. Yeah. So I would get through the day without the pain. I was able to do physical therapy, which helped tremendously. But in my opinion, I didn't want to take the other drugs that they were trying to prescribe me.
Yeah.
I didn't want to take the painkillers. My pear gummy for Wyld, it worked great and it helped me. So if even looking at it from that perspective, how can it help other people with their injuries or what they're facing? So I think, if we're able to start using the research dollars and advertising dollars to that versus in the past, we were spending the money on trying to ban it, right?
Yeah.
There's all the advertising and the police enforcement on banning it. If you could repivot that and move back that time and use that towards research and development, I'd be pretty surprised to see what we could find that the cannabis could help with.
Yeah, I think that's a story you need to share a lot more, just because that impactful feeling of what people be able to understand and learn from being able to use something that is technically natural from the earth that's been created and obviously put in a form that's digestible from that perspective is one, not only when you were in a very, very tough time in your life, helped you get back to where you're at right now. And I'd imagine that helps you want to introduce new products that are similar to that and being able to use those stories.
Absolutely. One of the best things about this job too is hearing from some of the customers and how we have positively impacted their lives or one of their loved ones' lives.
Yeah.
And it can be with pain. They could have a terminal illness and Wyld was able to help bring them some joy.
Yeah.
Whatever it might be, that's one of the most motivating things about this job.
Let's talk a little bit about the environment and really why you kind of started Wyld in Portland or in Oregon. Was it because you're from here or was it because this is considered a capital of growing cannabis and things of that nature? I'd love to understand the growing seasons and then the weather affecting and how does that all play into the business as well?
Yeah. We started it here because it's our backyard.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of resources and connections here from being in the spirits industry. So we had those contacts at the OLCC.
Yeah.
And so we were able to help work with them, and they're able to work with us as well to really pave the way for ourselves. Looking back at it now, there's a lot of resources the Spirits was able to provide that if we were in a different state, that wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
We were able to utilize what we were buying on the spirit side for our fruit and move it over to cannabis and make gummies with it.
Yeah.
And this is also back in a time, which, man, we could talk for a long time, the challenges we had when we first started, where you couldn't just go buy from a vendor on cannabis.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who wouldn't sell to you because they didn't want to jeopardize losing their business. And so if I'm buying, boxes or fruit or whatever it might be, back then, they could get their banks shut down. They could get their insurance taken away. All sorts of things could happen. So for us, we had very limited suppliers on what we could buy.
Yeah.
Where we were able to utilize the spirits company to buy some of that and resell it back. So that was definitely a benefit, but ultimately it was our backyard. It was one of the first legal states when we started, so that had some advantages. But with our process, we don't buy any of the flower. We buy the oil. So that allows us to really have a similar production process year round.
So break that down. Without buying the flour and just having the oil, does that make it easier for you guys to function and operate because it's a residual of something that's already being produced and then it's easier to come to you guys? Or how does that work?
It takes a level of the processing. It reduces the amount of steps in processing, right? Okay. So we don't have to buy the flour and extract the oil from it. We can just buy the oil.
Yeah.
And, we can have certain requirements and that we want to see within that oil that make our job a little bit easier. But it's also a similar business model, right? Went from the spirits.
Yeah.
So some of our spirits we bring in a neutral grain for.
Yeah.
Right. So it'd be kind of similar when you look at it that way, where we're bringing in an oil and then you can process the fruit into it, just like you're doing on the alcohol side too. So for us, it limited the touches. It does make it more consistent, and it also makes it more easy to replicate in other states, because with the THC side, we have, you cannot cross state lines with it. You have to have different manufacturing plants in each state. So if we have a recipe, if you will, it could be replicated across the country more easily, and less suppliers you have to deal with as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's this D9 beverage we talked about a little bit with the Midwest, and that you can cross state lines with.
Okay.
And we're really excited about that. We just launched our.
And how is that possible? How are you able to?
That's coming from industrial hemp.
Okay.
And so they're able to extract a THC version out of that. Yeah. And with the farm bill, industrial hemp was legalized. And so states are recognizing that and they're legalizing it within their state. So we do have Delta 9 gummies and beverages now. We sell them in quite a few states, and we're launching our beverage. We have some of the beverages here, and then we are launching those pretty heavily in the Midwest. Okay. We're really excited about that. So
Nebraska, home state.
We have a lot of that Midwest area.
We got to get a Husker drink going, man.
Help me out. Let's do it.
I'm down to do it. Let's do it. No, that's great. I'm curious to how the evolution of Wyld is, because what I picked up on there in your conversation, just talking about like you have to set up a manufacturer in each individual state for the primary sale of the non-D9 sale of gummies. Do you anticipate when you guys, and it becomes potentially federally legal at some point in time, we don't know if it'll be next year or in 10 decades from here, how does that make your business model that much more easier to grow and be able to not only have to be so segmented between all these different states?
Yeah, right now we are heavy CapEx when we have to enter a state, because you're setting up a whole new manufacturing site where, like on spirits, for example, I can produce in a city and ship it all over the country. Yeah. We don't have that benefit on cannabis now. So when we look at it, when it does go federally legal, and if we can start crossing state lines, it can save quite a bit. And I think what that does is that helps the overall pricing of cannabis products. And it makes it a little bit more accessible, and it allows other brands to enter markets too. Yeah. So I'm excited for that aspect of it. We currently have a lot of different kitchens across the country, and I think that also holds a competitive advantage too, because shipping is not cheap.
Yeah, I was going to say, so it's like you're going to become a distribution arm at least now.
That soon, yeah, we're excited to look at opportunities in that space too. Okay. By nature, we touch a lot of doors just with being the biggest cannabis brand in the edible market.
Okay. Yeah. So are you becoming the next Southern Glazers potentially?
I would say hold your beer and let's talk in a little bit. But
okay.
There's definitely expansion opportunities for us. We've done as much CapEx investing from as far as recreational markets as we can.
Yeah.
I think Delta 9 is intriguing because we're able to touch even more states and more doors. But what else can we invest into? Distribution seems interesting.
Yeah. No, we'll take that one offline and have a little bit more conversation. I'm curious to learn, just because I know, again, I've had enough, not only experience of working with you on the spirit side of things and learning and seeing all these different things, but seeing some of the relationships I have at Diageo and whatnot, just seeing how they've expanded and kind of strong-armed certain distribution models. It's curious to see how that can potentially grow in the future for cannabis.
I think right now, the cannabis space is serviced in a different way than alcohol. Yeah. And there is a lack of options for brands to utilize and lock arms with distributors, especially on a national level. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You can find state and sometimes within that state, just territory support for distribution. But who's doing it on a national level? We see a lot of opportunity.
So I got a question for you, and it's a little bit of an oddball one. But what is the biggest price you've ever had to pay as an individual to have a big breakthrough?
The biggest price I had to pay to have a big breakthrough. Yeah. I think even starting Wyld and Cascade Spirits was the biggest price. And if I'm answering that correctly, and I went all in. Yeah. And when I mean all in, like sold the house, maxed out the credit cards, all in.
Okay, I love it. Yeah.
And there's a sense of like when your back's against the wall, you have to make it work. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have another option. Okay. Right. So looking back at it now with what I have and would I do that? No, not a chance. But I was in my early 20s. Yeah. And I took that risk. Yeah. And I went all in. And fortunately it paid off. But if it wouldn't have, that'd be a tough situation to be in. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, talk about max out everything. I think when I looked at my checking account, like at less than $20. And so I think some people, when they look at success, like, and maybe even like at Wyld or other companies, they don't fully understand the risks that's involved in that. And for my situation, I went completely in.
No, I mean, that is definitely a price to pay to put the house up and max out the credit cards to bring your vision to the life into fruition.
I believed in it. Yeah. I believed in the product. I believed in the category. And I thought what we were putting together was something that consumers didn't have an option to buy. Yeah. And that's why I believed in it so much.
Yeah. But the thing is, with you believing in it and willing to risk everything, that's what made it a success. I think if you were a half foot in and a half foot out, you'd be scared money. And I think that's a difference in a lot of things that not only athletes, but entertainers and people across the world to say is like, let me find something that I actually am passionate about it and put all of my weight behind it and then see what comes from that standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this has been amazing and I appreciate your time. We obviously got some stuff to catch up offline on together, but I mean, it's been a pleasure to talk with you, Chris. I appreciate you coming on the show, and this is won't be our last conversation. I'm sure we'll have plenty more to talk about in the near future.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. T. Rowe Price proudly sponsors No Free Lunch. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the podcast participants and do not necessarily reflect those of T. Rowe Price. Their sponsorship supports the platform and does not imply endorsement of specific content or perspectives. What an amazing conversation with my guy, Chris Joseph. I think the biggest takeaway that I take from this conversation has to be he went all in and wasn't afraid to put everything on the line to create something successful and something truthfully that he believed in and ended up saving his own life in many forms and ways. So I think as an individual, not being afraid to go all the way in, no matter what it is, but then also being strategic and understanding There's other businesses that I can learn from, as you talked about the spirits business that he started from scratch in Cascade, and then built those learnings and helped him build an amazing company now that is a leader in the edible space for cannabis in the entire world, let alone in America as well. That's the show for today. I appreciate you guys as always. Come back for the next episode. Like, comment, subscribe to No Free Lunch on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.